Alex sat at the small kitchen table in his apartment with a spreadsheet open on his laptop. Sunlight filtered through the window as he sipped his coffee, carefully double-checking his calculations. It was his usual Saturday routine. He'd carve out an hour or two in the morning to manage finances or plan out the week's tasks. This organizational habit helped him stay grounded, although his fiancée Nicole teased him now and again for being too meticulous. He found her teasing charming, since it was delivered with the same affection she had shown him from the early days of their relationship. Nicole was in the living room sorting through photos she had taken for a recent freelance assignment. A few years ago, she'd built her reputation as a photographer who could capture vibrant, genuine moments in any environment. She now had a respectable client list that included local art galleries and national magazines. Despite her success, Nicole never lost her impulsive streak or curiosity. She brought spontaneity into Alex's life, teaching him not to schedule everything down to the last detail. They had met at a mutual friend's art exhibition. Alex had been there out of politeness, not anticipating much. He recalled standing in front of a photograph that showed a city street at dawn, the light hitting the pavement in an otherworldly way. He was trying to decipher something in the image's composition when Nicole approached him, her camera slung over her shoulder, an impish grin on her face. "I took that photo," she told him, pointing at the frame, "though I think you're overthinking it." There had been immediate warmth between them, a sense that they balanced each other in ways neither had expected. In time, they fell into a close bond. Alex admired her spontaneity. Nicole appreciated his stability. When they announced their engagement a year before, it felt like the most natural progression. Their friends commented that they had never seen a couple so perfect for each other. It was true that they rarely fought. If any differences arose, they managed to talk them through. They found that honesty was their strongest tool. Nicole often said that it didn't matter what subject came up. She trusted they could handle any challenge as long as they approached it honestly. One warm afternoon, they were relaxing on the couch together. Nicole was leaning against him, her arm draped around his shoulders, while they watched a documentary about avant-garde fashion. She seemed restless, though. He could feel it in the way she gently tapped her fingers on his arm. He turned to her and smiled. "You look like you're going to explode if you don't say something." Nicole took a breath, considering her words. "Have you ever thought about stepping outside of yourself for a night? Trying something completely new?" She paused, meeting his gaze. "Something that's not in your comfort zone." He gave her a thoughtful look. "I'm open to new experiences, but I'd like to know what you have in mind." She hesitated, then let out a nervous laugh. "We've always been honest with each other, right? No judgments." "That's our rule," he said, gently squeezing her hand. "No judgments." Nicole bit her lip. "I have this, well, it's sort of a fantasy. I've thought about it for a long time, but I never dared mention it to anyone. With you, though, I feel safe." She took a moment before continuing. "I'd like to see you dressed in a completely different way as a woman. It's not about wanting you to be someone else. I love who you are, but there's a side of me that wants to play with those boundaries, with the way clothing and appearance can shift how we see each other." Alex's expression was carefully neutral as he listened. There was a second of silence, which felt profound to both of them. "So, you want me to wear women's clothes, makeup, and everything?" Nicole nodded.
Yes.
"I know it's not typical, and it might be uncomfortable. This is purely a personal fantasy. It's not a reflection on your identity or anything like that. I still love every part of your masculinity, but I've always been curious what it would feel like to see you in that transformed state." Alex exhaled, setting the remote aside. He'd never considered cross-dressing, not even in a joking context. That said, nothing Nicole asked for had ever been impossible, and the trust between them was strong. Still, this request was different. It tested the edges of his own sense of self. He took a moment, noticing the hopeful but slightly worried look on Nicole's face. He reminded himself of how deeply he valued open-mindedness with her. "I'm not going to lie," he said. "This is out of my comfort zone, but you've never asked me for anything I couldn't at least try. I trust you, so yes, I'll do it." Nicole's face lit up in relief and excitement. She hugged him tightly, pressing her head against his chest. "Thank you," she said. "I promise it'll be interesting for both of us." Over the next week, the topic lingered at the back of Alex's thoughts. Part of him felt apprehensive. He was a numbers person, used to logic and structure, and he had never ventured far outside standard social norms. Another part of him was strangely curious. While he sensed Nicole's excitement was tied to seeing him in a new light, he tried not to overanalyze what his own reaction might be. He chalked it up to simply wanting to make her happy. By the week's end, she announced that she had everything ready for a special evening. They scheduled the event for a Friday night. Alex took a shower after returning home from work, changed into casual clothes, and found Nicole in the bedroom with a garment bag and a makeup kit spread out on the bed. She looked up, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Are you ready for this?" Alex inhaled. "Ready as I'll ever be." Nicole handed him a simple robe and directed him to get comfortable. She switched on a soft lamp, illuminating the space with a warm glow. Carefully, she pulled out a dress from the garment bag. It was a tasteful, knee-length dress in a muted color. She had also picked out a wig, a shoulder-length style that looked surprisingly natural. For a moment, Alex considered how surreal it felt to see these items meant for him. He reminded himself of the trust they had. She started with his hair. He wore the wig, adjusting the straps until it fit snugly. The sensation was strange. Next came the makeup, a bit of foundation, some subtle eyeshadow, eyeliner to bring out his eyes, and a faintly glossy lipstick. Nicole worked with focus, occasionally pausing to see how certain colors looked. Alex tried to stay calm, but when he caught his reflection in the mirror, he flinched a bit. His features were partially hidden beneath cosmetics, and it was jarring to see someone else's face in the mirror. "Don't worry," Nicole murmured softly. "This might feel weird at first, but we're doing this together." She smiled encouragingly. "Try to think of it as just another adventure, like hiking a trail you've never been on." He nodded, feeling waves of uncertainty and a small hint of intrigue. When she helped him into the dress, he felt the fabric sliding along his arms. He noted how it clung differently than his usual clothes. The process felt intimate, though not exactly romantic in the typical sense. It was a shared experience, one that required trust and a willingness to be vulnerable in a way he never had before. Nicole stepped back to admire her work, eyes shining. "Wow," she whispered. "You look so different." Alex managed a half smile, still feeling his cheeks warm. "I feel different. I'm not sure if that's good or bad yet." She reached for his hand, guided him toward the mirror. He hesitated, not fully prepared to confront the reflection. But once he stood in front of it, he couldn't look away. It was disorienting to see a feminine silhouette, and that silhouette was him. Yet beyond the initial discomfort, there was a spark of curiosity. He saw the artistry in the makeup, the care in the details. He recognized how clothing, hair, and subtle touches could transform perceptions so completely. Nicole slipped her arm around his waist, resting her head on his shoulder. "Tell me what you're feeling." He swallowed, conflicted. "It's not just about wearing the dress. I don't know. I guess it makes me see how easily what we think is us can shift based on appearance. But it's also, strangely." He paused, searching for the right word. "Liberating? I feel like I'm seeing a new corner of my own world." Nicole's smile grew tender. She squeezed him gently. "Thank you for trusting me. I want you to feel comfortable. So, let's go at whatever pace you need." They spent the rest of the evening in that small space, talking about everything and nothing. Nicole occasionally stroked the wig or adjusted a fold on the dress, her fascination shining through. They put on quiet music, shared a late dinner, and even danced for a minute, giggling at the awkwardness of it all. As the hours passed, Alex found that although it was unusual, he wasn't disliking the experience. It felt like a door had opened, and he was stepping into a new chamber of his own mind. Later, when Nicole helped him remove the makeup, he felt oddly reluctant to let go of that borrowed appearance. It was as if he wanted a bit more time before returning to his everyday self. Still, he slipped back into his familiar pajamas and joined Nicole in bed, where they held each other close and let the softness of the moment carry them to sleep. In the days that followed, Alex caught himself remembering the feeling of the fabric and the subtle rustle of the dress's hem. He didn't fully understand why it lingered in his thoughts. On one level, he was simply grateful to have made Nicole happy. He would sometimes look at her across the room and recall her excited smile from that night, the admiration in her eyes. On another level, there was a private flicker of interest he couldn't quite articulate, something that was just his. A week later, Nicole discovered him in the bedroom staring at the garment bag that held the dress. She leaned against the doorway, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Thinking about doing it again? He gave her a bashful grin. I'm not sure. It's not like I'm itching to walk around town like that, but I've been thinking about the way I felt, and it was surprising. There was something intriguing about it that I can't quite let go. Nicole walked over, placing a hand on his back. I'm glad you're curious about it. This was originally for me, but if it's becoming something that interests you, we can explore that, too. He brushed his hair back, letting out a quiet breath. Would you be okay with that? That it's no longer just about fulfilling your fantasy, but maybe also about me exploring something new? Nicole nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. This isn't a one-sided experience. It's still us sharing something together. If it's starting to mean more to you than just a fun night, I want to know everything. And I want you to feel free to figure out what it is you like. That evening, while Nicole was out running errands, Alex found himself alone with the garment bag. He lingered in front of it for several minutes, wrestling with a swirl of feelings, curiosity, a dose of guilt, embarrassment, excitement. Finally, he pulled out the dress and set it gently on the bed. The memory of how it looked and felt on him made his pulse quicken. He closed the bedroom door, drew the curtains, and got dressed in quiet solitude. Without Nicole there to guide or reassure, he was more aware of his own reactions. He observed the slope of his shoulders in the mirror, how the dress fit along his torso, and how the wig changed his face. There was no audience now, no reason to perform. He realized he liked the sensation of the clothing, the novelty of the silhouette. Perhaps it was a relief, a sense of stepping outside his routine identity in a private space. When Nicole came home, she found him in the living room, back in his usual clothes. She could tell from the way his eyes darted around that he'd been up to something. After some gentle prodding, he confessed that he'd worn the dress by himself. She took his hand, leading him to the couch. How did it feel without me here? He tried to articulate it. Strange, but comforting. Like it gave me a little breathing room from everyday pressures. She kept her voice soft. I love that you're opening up to it. Just remember, I'm here for you. You're not alone in any of this. Their bond grew deeper with these moments of candor. What started as a fantasy revealed another layer of their relationship. Nicole enjoyed the idea of seeing him explore his more delicate side. She had sometimes rummaged through her old wardrobe, offering items she no longer wore, adjusting them for him. They began talking more frequently about clothing, about the power it holds over how we perceive ourselves. Inevitably, the dynamic shifted in subtle ways. Nicole took pleasure in guiding him, but she also recognized that he was forming a personal connection to cross-dressing that went beyond that initial spark. One night, as she scrolled through her phone to show him various outfits, she found herself wondering how this was changing their relationship. Was he drifting away from the original intent of making her fantasy come true? Or was he simply embracing a side of himself she hadn't known existed? She tried not to let the insecurity get to her, but occasionally, a flicker of worry passed through her mind. Their honesty policy prevailed, and they had several frank conversations about it. Nicole assured Alex that his exploration wasn't diminishing her original excitement. She admitted, though, that part of her felt overshadowed, as if her role in the scenario had shifted. It's silly, she told him one afternoon. I used to think, this is my fantasy. I'm orchestrating something new. Now it feels like you've taken that spark and made it your own, which is great. But I guess I worry you'll eventually need me less in this whole thing. Alex gently took her hands in his. I didn't even realize you might feel that way, but I want you to know this wouldn't be happening without you. You opened this door, and I still need you. It's not like I want to detach from you. This is still about the two of us. She leaned her forehead against his. I know. I just want to make sure we don't lose track of each other in the middle of it all. For a few weeks, they worked to maintain equilibrium. They introduced small ways to make sure Nicole felt included, like turning a dressing session into an artistic photo shoot. She brought out her camera, guiding Alex in a series of portraits. He stood by the window wearing a flowing top and wig, trying out different expressions while she captured the interplay of shadows on his face. The camera's shutter clicks created a sense of collaboration that they both enjoyed. The images were for them alone, but they gave Nicole a deeper sense of connection to his exploration. It reminded her that this was still a shared journey, not a solo enterprise. However, for Alex, the curiosity became more constant. He found himself thinking about it during random moments of the day, like when he was waiting for his coffee at the office break room or driving home. Sometimes the thoughts were pleasant, a warm reminder of the new depth he had found. Other times, he felt uneasy. He feared judgment from society or from friends if they ever found out. He worried about whether he was changing too much, too quickly. He wondered if Nicole's initial fantasy would be overshadowed by this more personal interest. Then came a small turning point. One night, as they lounged in the living room, Nicole showed him an invitation to a masquerade-themed party a colleague was hosting. "We've been invited," she said. "The theme is playful dress-up. People might wear all sorts of costumes from historical outfits to elegant gowns and masks. It's not exactly a typical Halloween party, more like a creative soiree. Would you want to go dressed up?" Alex blinked. "Dressed in what sense?" She gave a small, secretive smile. "If we go together, maybe you could wear something feminine, and I could wear something more traditionally masculine. It'd be a safe environment for experimentation surrounded by artsy types. Nobody would bat an eye if we took an unconventional approach." His stomach flipped with a mix of excitement and dread. Publicly appearing in feminine attire, even at an open-minded event, was a big step. He took a breath. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." Nicole placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's entirely up to you. I just thought it might be a chance for us to share this side of ourselves without secrecy. We could do matching masks. You wouldn't be fully exposed." He deliberated for a few days. Eventually, a feeling of determination settled in. He remembered how much he trusted Nicole's instincts and that if there was ever a place to be adventurous, a masquerade party in a creative circle seemed like the moment. He decided yes. As they prepared for the event, Nicole helped pick out a simple but elegant dress for him. Something that wouldn't draw too much attention, but still offered that feminine silhouette. She chose a tailored suit jacket and pants for herself, along with a stylish vest. They each had matching masks that covered most of the upper part of their faces. On the night of the party, they spent nearly an hour in the bedroom adjusting each other's outfits, adding finishing touches. Nicole gelled her hair back in a sleek manner, and Alex styled his wig in loose waves. They stepped back from the mirror, taking in the sight of themselves and each other. The role reversal theme was obvious, but it didn't feel comical. It felt carefully considered, elegant even. Upon arriving at the venue, a spacious loft lit with fairy lights and filled with people in every manner of costume, they were greeted with warmth. Attendees wore Baroque-inspired dresses, fantasy masks, or futuristic ensembles. Soft jazz music wafted in the background. Alex felt a rush of nerves, but Nicole slipped her hand into his, giving him a supportive squeeze. They moved through the room, chatting with acquaintances. Many complimented their inventive costumes. "You two look fantastic," one friend exclaimed. "So creative and confident." Alex accepted with a cautious smile. He was aware that very few people recognized him under the mask, but that was partly why he felt able to enjoy it. Nicole, meanwhile, reveled in her dashing attire. She winked at him every so often, pulling him closer as if to wordlessly reassure him. They danced, swirling gently among the crowd. Alex let the dress swirl around his legs, noticing again that strange but welcome sense of release. With the mask concealing part of his face, he had fewer inhibitions. It was a memorable night full of colorful interactions and compliments that caught him off guard. By the end of the evening, as they left the loft and walked into the calm night air, Alex felt as though he'd just taken a leap into uncharted territory and landed safely. On the drive home, Nicole's hand rested gently on his knee. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "You faced something completely new in public, and you did it with grace." He smiled at her, relaxing into his seat. "I wouldn't have done it without you." That sense of triumph carried over for a while, but it also ushered in new realizations. If he could do it at a party, could he someday feel comfortable in other spaces? Did he want to? He wasn't sure. The intimate, private side of cross-dressing was appealing, like a secret corner of his life he could retreat to when he needed. At the same time, a small part of him found satisfaction in not hiding, in the idea of stepping out unafraid. He continued to experiment at home more frequently. He asked Nicole for tips on styling wigs and matching accessories. Sometimes, they would cook dinner together, him in a comfortable skirt, her wearing her casual clothes. It felt oddly normal, a progression from the private explorations they'd shared. Neither of them felt the need to force anything. They found a playful rhythm. Yet, in quiet moments, they acknowledged that this was bigger than they had originally imagined. It wasn't just a one-night fantasy that burned bright and then disappeared. Nicole sometimes felt a stab of uncertainty. She'd catch sight of him with carefully applied makeup, lost in his own thoughts, and wonder if this was building to a future change that might leave her behind. But she recalled their talks and remembered how earnestly he professed that none of this replaced his commitment to her. She refused to let her insecurities overshadow the trust that anchored them. Instead, she found ways to be supportive, engaging him in light conversations about shopping or planning little at-home fashion shows that made both of them laugh. One afternoon, Alex was in the bedroom browsing online for a new wig. He wasn't looking for anything outrageous, maybe a different style, something wavier or a different color. He heard Nicole's footsteps approach. She leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowing slightly. "A second wig?" He nodded, a bit sheepish. "Yeah, I was just thinking it'd be nice to try another style. The first one is great, but I want to see how something else feels." Nicole slowly sat beside him on the bed. "I think that's wonderful if you want to broaden your options." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I guess I'm just a little worried about how fast this is all moving. It's not that I want to slow you down necessarily. It's just that I remember a time when you weren't sure if you'd ever do this again. Now you're really diving in." He closed the laptop. "I didn't expect it to happen this way either, but I like how it feels. I like what we're discovering. If I'm going too fast, though, let me know. I don't want to leave you feeling like you're losing control." Nicole thought about it, sliding her hand into his. "I don't feel like I'm losing control as much as I'm watching something grow, and I want to be sure we're both growing with it. I'm proud of you for exploring, and I want you to know you can count on me. But I'm human, and sometimes I have little flashes of worry that I might become just a spectator in something that once was my idea." With a soft nod, Alex wrapped his arms around her. "You're never just a spectator. You're my partner. That will never change." The conversation was a significant checkpoint. It reminded both of them to remain aware of each other's feelings. Nicole relaxed somewhat, realizing that Alex was still as committed to their relationship as ever. And Alex felt more secure, knowing she wasn't uneasy about the changes in him, only cautious that they stay connected. Life beyond these explorations continued, much the same. Alex still went to work every day, diligently handling spreadsheets and meeting with clients. He kept his style traditional in the office setting, finding a certain comfort in the routine. Nicole still had photography gigs, capturing weddings, fashion events, and occasional artistic projects. The two spheres of their lives, the everyday responsibilities and the private cross-dressing, rarely intersected. That separation allowed them to maintain a healthy balance. Sometimes they joked about their double life, but it never felt burdensome or shameful. It was simply their own private corner of the world. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Nicole suggested they do a thematic photo shoot. They had the entire day free, and the sun was hitting the living room windows just right. She pulled out a selection of clothes, including some of her own pieces and a few that Alex had picked up. She arranged a simple backdrop by the window and placed her camera on a tripod. "Let's have fun with this," she said. "We can do a variety of looks." Alex spent the next few hours trying on different outfits while Nicole snapped pictures. She guided him through poses, instructing him to tilt his chin slightly, or shift his weight to one side. Sometimes she joined him in the frame, using the camera's timer. They laughed when a prop fell over, or when his wig slipped out of place. Halfway through the shoot, Nicole changed into an outfit that was more androgynous, and he chose a blouse that was understated but still feminine. The two of them found a natural rhythm, each pose reflecting a comfortable intimacy. As the sun began to set, they reviewed the photos on her camera. The warm light gave the images a dreamlike quality. Alex noticed that in some shots he looked completely at ease in the feminine attire, while Nicole exuded confidence in her more masculine ensemble. They both smiled at the results, proud of what they had created. "These are for us," Nicole said, scrolling through them slowly. "A reminder of what we share." Over dinner that night, they chatted about the upcoming week's schedule. They'd already decided to set a date for their wedding in a few months' time. The conversation meandered into wedding plans, potential venues, the style of Nicole's dress, and who to invite. At one point, Nicole hesitantly brought up a question. "Have you thought about, well, whether you'd want to incorporate any part of this exploration into the wedding?" He blinked, startled. "You mean wearing something feminine for the ceremony?" He toyed with his fork, considering. "I hadn't thought about it. I don't know if that would be the right place or time. I don't want to distract from the ceremony we've dreamed about. You deserve your day in the spotlight." Nicole nodded. "I understand. I only asked because, well, this is a big part of our story now. But if you want to keep it private, we can. Your comfort is the priority." He reached across the table to take her hand. "Thank you. Maybe I'll stick to the classic tux. But we can keep playing around behind the scenes, and after we're married, we can continue exploring however we want." That response eased some of Nicole's lingering anxieties. She realized he hadn't abandoned who he was. He had simply added another dimension to himself. It felt reassuring to know he wasn't racing to announce a drastic change to the world. Their connection still formed the bedrock of every decision. She squeezed his hand. "Sounds perfect." A month before the wedding, they visited a small bed and breakfast in the countryside for a pre-wedding getaway. The place was charming with vintage decor, a wraparound porch, and an expansive view of rolling fields. They wandered hand in hand through gardens, relishing the tranquility away from city noise. In the evenings, by the fireplace in their private suite, Alex wore comfortable loungewear that carried a hint of feminine style. Nothing flashy, just a softer cut of pajamas he had grown fond of. Nicole wore her usual casual clothes, and they'd spend hours talking about their plans for the future. One night, as the fire crackled, Nicole asked, "Are you happy with how things have gone since that first night? I know it's been a whirlwind." Alex turned thoughtful, his gaze resting on the flicker of flames. "I am. It's opened a layer of myself that I didn't realize existed. It's as if I found an extra note in a familiar melody. That said, you're still my compass. If anything I'm doing ever feels like it's taking away from what we have, I need you to tell me." She shifted closer to him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I will. And, I'm excited to see how this evolves over time. We've learned so much about each other. It's amazing how one idea can lead to so many new experiences." The wedding day arrived on a bright, clear morning. Friends and family gathered at a small garden venue. The ceremony was beautiful, heartfelt, and simple. Alex wore a traditional tux, while Nicole stunned everyone in a flowing white gown. When he saw her walking down the aisle, he was reminded of all the love, trust, and new discoveries they had shared. Emotions swelled in his chest. There, surrounded by blooming flowers and the joyful smiles of their loved ones, they exchanged vows. Their wedding kiss was met with applause and a gentle breeze that seemed to carry well wishes along with it. The reception was full of laughter and personal touches. A local band played soft music. Tables were set with wildflower centerpieces that Nicole had arranged herself. At one point, an old friend of Nicole's clinked a glass and made a toast about how the couple complimented each other in ways that were visible to everyone. Alex felt tears prick his eyes, recalling the many times Nicole's presence had given him courage. Late that night, after the final guests had gone, Alex and Nicole found themselves alone in their honeymoon suite. The atmosphere was hushed, the only light coming from a small lamp by the bed. She removed the pins from her hair, letting it fall around her shoulders. He set aside his jacket and tie. They looked at each other across the soft glow of the room. The conversation flowed quietly, touching on every topic imaginable. The day's events, the loved ones who had attended, and what lay ahead. In the private hush, there was a silent acknowledgement of all they'd been through. They were exhausted, happy, and deeply connected. They spent the first part of their marriage in a busy but joyful state, sending out thank you notes, traveling for a brief honeymoon, and settling into their routines as newlyweds. The cross-dressing aspect of Alex's life continued in the background, not overshadowing their marriage, but adding a private dimension that enriched their time together. Occasionally, Nicole would bring home a new blouse or a piece of jewelry she thought he might like. He, in turn, would suggest a photography theme they could explore. They found ways to keep the spark alive without letting it dominate their lives. Time passed as it does, and they navigated the normal ups and downs of marriage. Disagreements about finances, scheduling conflicts, creative differences in how they arranged their shared office space. Throughout it all, that central theme of honesty never wavered. Whenever an issue arose, they'd revisit their pledge to talk openly. It had proven itself time and again, ever since the conversation that first brought them down this path. On one ordinary weekend morning, Alex prepared breakfast while Nicole read a magazine in the living room. The smell of coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air. He glanced over at the garment bag in the closet, remembering the first night he had worn that dress. It felt like a lifetime ago. He set the plates on the table and called Nicole in. She joined him, placing a gentle kiss on his cheek before taking her seat. As they ate, she smiled at him. "I was thinking of doing a photography series on the subject of unconventional style," she said casually. "A personal project, not for any publication. If you want it, maybe you could be one of the models." He looked up, chewing thoughtfully. "I would love that. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun." She shrugged with a grin. "We could make a whole day of it. Try out different outfits. Maybe I'll wear something unexpected, too." He reached over to hold her hand. "Count me in." They continued to talk about how they might set up the shoot, what kind of angles and lighting she'd use. Even as the conversation rolled on, Alex found himself lost in gratitude for the closeness they shared. Their life, full of varied experiences and honest communication, felt deeply fulfilling. Toward the end of breakfast, Nicole sipped her coffee, her gaze turning reflective. "Sometimes I think back to the day I first told you about my fantasy," she began. "I was so nervous about what you'd say. I almost didn't ask because I worried you'd think I was strange or that it would drive us apart." Alex set his coffee cup down, warmth spreading through his chest. "I'm glad you trusted me. It changed our life in a way that I never saw coming, but it opened up a side of us that we might never have discovered otherwise." He caught himself. He almost used a phrase he was trying to avoid. Instead, he added, "It brought so many unexpected joys." Nicole reached across the table to lace her fingers with his. "It did, and I hope it continues to do so." They shared a moment of silent agreement. Beyond the daily responsibilities and the occasional stress, they had an ongoing story that felt layered, a narrative with expansions and twists yet to come. When they finished their meal, Nicole stood up to clear the plates, and Alex helped her, the two exchanging affectionate glances that spoke louder than words. By midday, the sun poured through the windows of their home. They decided to spend the afternoon working on projects side by side, Alex finalizing a few of his finance reports, Nicole editing photos on her computer. Occasionally, they'd pause to show each other something, the details of a recent photo shoot or an amusing observation from a spreadsheet. The day had an easy flow, a testament to how their lives meshed so naturally. Even in quieter moments, Alex could sense the undercurrent of understanding that existed between them. Nicole would catch his eye and smile, seemingly aware of the closeness that had grown since they first challenged each other's perspectives. As dusk approached, they decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. The sky glowed with hues of orange and pink, and the sound of distant traffic blended with the rhythm of their footsteps on the sidewalk. They talked about the future, plans for traveling, for exploring new photography projects, for perhaps moving to a slightly bigger place when the time felt right. Their words were full of the same trust and openness that had carried them through so many changes. At one point, they stopped at a small park, sitting on a bench beneath an old tree. Nicole leaned her head on Alex's shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her. "I think we've done a good job so far," she murmured. "With everything." He kissed the top of her head softly. "I think so, too. And whatever lies ahead, I'm glad I'm facing it with you." The sky darkened slowly, and they stayed there longer than intended, enjoying the peacefulness. In that moment, there were no grand announcements or startling revelations. It was simply them, two people who had promised to share their lives, their curiosities, and their vulnerabilities. The journey they had undertaken since that pivotal conversation felt both surreal and utterly natural. The threads of their story wove together in a pattern that neither could have predicted, yet both embraced with open hearts. Eventually, they rose from the bench and walked back home hand in hand. The porch light welcomed them as they stepped inside. Nicole turned to Alex, and in the dim glow of their hallway, she whispered, "I love you." He leaned down and pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, too." Upstairs, the old garment bag still hung in the closet, and a handful of blouses and skirts lay neatly folded in drawers. Nicole's photography equipment was stored in its usual spot, ready for another day of creativity. Tomorrow might bring more experiments, or it might be a simple day of errands and dinner at home. Regardless of what came next, they knew they had laid a foundation of honesty and trust strong enough to embrace wherever life took them. Their connection, rooted in sincerity, respect, and a willingness to explore, remained a central theme that guided them forward night after night, day after day. Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.